In Sabi Sands, time is not measured in years or months. It is measured in blood and scars. 2 decades ago, a brutal empire was built from betrayal. 6 true killers elevated lion brutality to a whole new level. But no throne is eternal. Today, the ghosts of the old rulers have faded into the past. A new order has risen from the ashes of what came before. Welcome to the Sabi Sands of today, where the old legends are now merely lessons in survival, and new kings are writing their own stories. Sabi Sands, Legacy of the Rulers. Night in Sabi Sands always begins with a declaration of power. A roar echoes far and wide, an assertion of dominance that every creature must bow to. Today, this land is a paradise of diversity, where herds of elephants roam freely and leopards move at will. But do not let the quiet of the darkness deceive you. To achieve the peace of the present, this land had to endure its darkest period. An era when blood and terror redefined every law of nature. Sabi Sands is not just a place, it is a chessboard of survival. Here, all life revolves around water sources. Those narrow rivers and small waterholes are treasures, but they are also deadly traps. In the Savanna, controlling water means controlling the fate of every other species. It was at these lifelines that the most ferocious battles erupted, not merely to fill stomachs, but to establish absolute dominance. And 20 years ago, an alliance turned these water sources into mass graves. If you ask any veteran ranger about their most horrifying memory, they will mention only one name, Mapogo. Before they appeared, Sabi Sands was an ecosystem governed by balanced natural laws. But when 6 giants carrying a bloodline of brutality invaded from the north, that entire order was torn apart. We are not talking about an ordinary lion coalition. We are talking about a reign of terror that permanently altered the DNA of this land. The legacy Mapogo left behind was not only victories, but deep wounds upon the ecosystem. For several years, Sabi Sands fell into a terrifying silence. The calls of hyenas fell quiet, leopards vanished, and even elephant herds had to change their migration routes to avoid death. We will turn back time together to witness how a lion coalition did not merely hunt prey, but hunted an entire ecosystem, forcing everything to submit. From the north, where dense forests border Kruger National Park, 6 large shadows began infiltrating Sabi Sands around 2006. They were not lone wanderers or an ordinary alliance. They were a legion, a rare coalition of unprecedented scale in modern lion history. Rangers and guides in Sabi Sands at the time noticed the anomaly immediately. A typical male lion coalition consists of 2, or at most 4 members, usually brothers or close relatives. But here were 6 giants: Makalu, Rasta, Scarnose, Pretty Boy, Kinky Tail, and Mr. T. 5 of the younger ones were brothers from the Sparta Pride in Mala Mala, while Makalu was a powerful outsider who joined, bringing the weight and wisdom of an elder. This scale was not for mere survival. It was designed for conquest and domination. They moved like a perfect war machine. Each weighed between 400 and 485 pounds. With thick black manes and bodies covered in battle scars. They were not just seeking food or females, they were seeking an empire. Within a few years, Mpogo controlled nearly 173,000 acres, a vast territory many times larger than that of ordinary coalitions. They dominated 8 different lion prides, completely redrawing the power map of Sabi Sands. What made Mpogo different was not only their superior physical strength, but their ruthless intelligence and military-like coordination. Instead of scattering to hunt or mark territory, they moved in single file to conceal their true numbers, creating the illusion that only 2 or 3 were advancing. Enemies usually realized their mistake only when it was too late. They instinctively but cleverly applied divide and conquer. 1 or 2 would harass from the front with roars and charges, while the rest circled behind to cut off escape routes. This level of coordination was so rare that researchers and rangers could only marvel. Were these still wild animals, or a disciplined army forged by Africa's brutal survival pressures? Mpogo did not wait for opponents to attack. They proactively expanded their territory, penetrating deep into other prides' areas and roaring to declare sovereignty. Their numerical strength allowed them to overpower even the strongest adult male lions. They took down unusually large prey, full-grown buffalo, giraffes, and even young elephants or hippopotamus calves, feats few coalitions would dare attempt. Mpogo's crown was forged from the blood of their own kind. They established power by massacring local male lions. Many small prides were wiped out in a single night. It is estimated they killed between 40 and 100 lions, including females and cubs, in the early phase of their rule alone, a horrifying number that affected nearly 40% of the Sabi Sands lion population. The most ruthless policy was total extermination. They killed all cubs to force lionesses back into estrus quickly, ensuring every gene in the territory carried Mpogo blood. Though brutal, this was the ancient survival strategy of male lions when taking new territory. But with a group of 6, the scale of destruction was unprecedented. Hyenas, those proud scavengers, no longer dared approach a carcass if it carried the scent of Mapogo. Leopards retreated deep into the bush, shifting their hunting hours to midnight to avoid conflict. Even elephants and buffalo became more vigilant. Mapogo did not kill only to eat. They sometimes consumed their own kind, an extreme behavior that underscored absolute dominance. Mapogo changed not only lions, but the very heartbeat of all Sabi Sands. Their excessive violence created a temporary ecological dead zone. Herbivore numbers fluctuated wildly because traditional migration routes were severed by fear. Areas once filled with the sounds of antelope, zebra, and impala fell into an eerie silence. Smaller predators like cheetahs and African wild dogs were initially hit hard, but wild dogs later recovered strongly as lion numbers declined. The ecosystem was visibly distorted. Less internal competition among lions, but far greater pressure on large prey. Mapogo forced other species to change their survival behaviors, moving farther, staying more alert, or retreating to safer areas. This was living proof of the role of an apex predator in shaping the entire ecosystem. Yet every empire built on violence carries the seeds of its own destruction. As the giants aged, accumulated injuries mounted, and younger coalitions rose, Sabi Sands prepared for a new purge, nature's endless cycle. Time was the only enemy Mapogo could not defeat. After years of ruling through violence, the conquerors began to pay the price. The footsteps that once shook Sabi Sands now grew heavy. Fangs shattered from life and death battles, speed diminished, and old wounds began to fester. In the wild, aging is a death sentence written in invisible ink, waiting only for younger coalitions to carry it out. What had once given Mapogo unmatched strength was the absolute unity of the six brothers. But when resources dwindled and egos grew too large, the empire began to fracture. Internal wars erupted. No longer were there smooth, coordinated hunts. Instead, bloody disputes arose over a piece of meat or mating rights. Some members broke away, venturing into risky, solitary adventures. Once the bundle of sticks was untied, Mapogo's end was only a matter of time. Nature has an excellent memory and a terrifying patience. As soon as it sensed the king's strength weakening, other species began reclaiming what they had lost. Hyenas gathered into massive clans, no longer fleeing but actively attacking lone Mapogo members. Leopards re-emerged in riverine forests, reclaiming old hunting corridors. Even buffalo herds, once frequent victims, formed sharp-horned circles to actively gore the dying former kings. One by one, the legends fell. Kinky Tail was torn apart in an unequal battle. Mr. T, the most brutal butcher of them all, finally fell under the claws of younger successors. There were no grand funerals, no mourning. The kings who once made all Sabi Sands tremble ultimately died like every other creature, alone, in pain, and rotting back into the earth. The power vacuum they left was a vast black hole, plunging the ecosystem into temporary chaos before a new chapter began. The first rains of the season fell over the old Mapago lands like a cleansing ritual. The scent of blood was washed away, replaced by the smell of moist earth and new life sprouting. The Mapago Empire had ended, but the story of Sabi Sands had not. A great migration was about to begin into the empty land, where gentler giants waited to redefine survival. Mapogo had faded into darkness, leaving a devastated yet opportunity-filled Sabi Sands. And the first to recognize this was the animal with the most enduring memory in the savannah: the elephants. Elephants possess the most accurate memory maps of the savannah. With the largest brain on land and superior long-term memory, matriarchs store information about water sources, food-rich areas, safe migration routes, and, most importantly, dangerous territories across decades. For more than 10 years under Mapogo rule, this elephant matriarch had marked the central Sabi Sands area on her blacklist, a dead zone, thick with lion scent, echoing nighttime roars, and deadly ambushes. But today, the wind carried a completely different message. The scent of the 6 demons had faded significantly. The aging Mapogo were dead or dying, and the new coalitions were not yet strong enough to control the entire vast territory. The fragrance of fresh grass after rain, the scent of young acacia leaves, and the peace of open spaces were spreading. Her 60 years of instinct and experience told her the age of fear had temporarily ended. It was time to lead her family back to the promised land, where their ancestors had once roamed freely. The elephant's migration decision was not random. The matriarch used infrasound, low-frequency vibrations traveling through the ground for dozens of miles, to communicate with other herds and confirm the information. The elephants moved slowly and in formation, calves protected in the middle by massive bodies, adult females taking turns on guard duty. This was not merely a return, but a reconquest of a land once frozen by Mapogo's terror. This migration was not just a change of residence, it was an occupation. After years of avoiding central Sabi sands due to Mapogo pressure, the elephant herd now advanced deep into the heart of the old six-giant territory. No longer did they stop at every whiff of lion scent. No longer did they avoid dark areas where hyenas and lions once lurked. Young elephants played carefree in the mud, rolling and spraying water at each other, a sight rarely seen during Mapogo's reign, when every creature lived in a state of high alert. Adult elephants casually reached their trunks to strip leaves from treetops, instead of constantly scanning every bush. Sabi sands no longer belonged to sharp fangs and threatening roars. It now lay beneath the steady feet of gentle yet powerful giants. The journey lasted many days. Elephants traveled an average of 6 to 12 miles each day, stopping at old waterholes and fresh grass areas. Their return was the clearest sign that the cycle of power had shifted. During Mapogo's rule, elephants usually avoided the central area or passed through quickly during daylight. Now they paused, rested, and began to settle long-term. Elephants do not merely live in the ecosystem, they create and reshape it. As Africa's greatest ecosystem engineers, each adult elephant consumes between 330 and 660 pounds of food daily and travels dozens of miles. With unmatched strength, they topple old woody trees and break through the dense bush thickets that Mapogo once used as ambush sites. This tree felling opens new clearings for grass and herbs to grow, creating wide pathways through areas that were once nearly impenetrable. Waterholes dug by elephants with their tusks and feet serve not only themselves during the dry season, but become vital lifelines for antelope, zebra, buffalo, hippopotamus, and hundreds of bird and insect species. Massive elephant dung, rich in nutrients and seeds, acts as natural fertilizer, helping vegetation revive quickly after being frozen by fear. Mapogo had created a land gripped by violence and silence. Elephants now threw open the doors, letting sunlight reach the ground and triggering biodiversity. The trails they created became natural highways, allowing other species to move more easily and reducing ambush risks. As these colossal architects redrew the map, ripple effects spread throughout the ecosystem. Elephant paths became highways for impala, zebra, wildebeest, and other herbivores. Lush new grass attracted larger herds, bringing abundant food for every level. Birds and insectivores appeared in force around newly fallen trees and elephant dung. Leopards gained more hunting space without fear of Mapogo interference. Wild dogs, a species once pushed to the brink of local extinction under Mapogo, began to reappear and breed strongly as lion pressure eased. Even hyenas reclaimed their place in the food chain without constant flight. The presence of elephants did not bring spreading fear like Mapogo, but opportunity and abundance. An open and dynamic ecosystem was replacing the suffocating, deathly silence of the past. Each heavy footstep of the elephants was like a powerful heartbeat, restarting the once stilled heart of Sabi Sands. However, the story does not end here. The elephants' return also created new challenges, increasing conflicts with humans at the edges of the reserve, and pressure on vegetation if the herd grew too large. But that is the law of nature, a continuous circle of balance, where Mapogo's destruction gave way to the elephant's recovery, and then to the resurgence of biodiversity. Sabi Sands is shedding its old skin. The new giants do not rule with fangs, claws, or brutal roars. They bring life through their very existence. Yet in those newly opened paths, another pair of sharp eyes is watching. A solitary predator that has waited too long to escape the shadow of the lions, the leopard. In the era of Mapogo dominance, leopards lived on the edge of survival, existing like ghosts hidden in the shadows. They had to calculate every step to avoid falling into the sight of the 6 brutal giants. Mapogo male lions did not kill leopards merely for meat or food competition. They killed out of an instinct for absolute dominance. An adult leopard spotted on the ground was almost certainly chased to the end. In that period, leopards were forced to completely change their survival strategy. They hid their cubs in the deepest rock dens, narrow crevices, or thickest bushes, dragged kills up the highest branches that lions could not reach, hunted only in absolute silence, and mainly in the late night. The survival rate of leopard cubs was very low, and many mothers had to move constantly to avoid detection. Their territories shrank to the forest edges, or riverbanks that Mapogo rarely visited. But when Mapogo's blood empire collapsed, with aging members dying off or being replaced by new coalitions, that crushing pressure was lifted. Sabi Sands witnessed a powerful resurgence of leopards. Their population increased noticeably, and their behavior became bolder. Leopards now dared to walk along main trails during daylight, rest on lower trees, and hunt more flexibly. The absence of pressure from large lion coalitions opened up more living space and abundant food sources for Africa's most mysterious big cat. If Mapogo represented raw brute force and overwhelming numbers, then Tlalamba represented perfect adaptation and refined hunting intelligence. Born and raised in the post-Mapogo period, Talalamba quickly became a symbol of recovery. She was not only an excellent hunter, but also a devoted mother, frequently recorded with spectacular kills and a high success rate in raising cubs. No longer driven away from the rich central hunting grounds by large male lions, Talalamba and her kind began expanding their territories. They reclaimed acacia woodlands, riverine thickets, and even open areas where they had previously only dared to pass stealthily. Leopard cub survival rates soared, thanks to reduced infanticide and competition from lions. Long-term studies by Panthera and the Sabi Sands Leopard Project show that leopard density here ranks among the highest in Africa, with a healthy population structure, many adult females, and strong reproductive rates. We are witnessing a new generation of leopards, more confident, smarter, and no longer trembling at echoing roars in the night. Talalamba is often seen moving during the day, dragging large prey up trees, or playing with her cubs, behaviors the previous generation rarely dared to display openly. Observe how Talalamba and her kind take advantage of the legacy left by the elephant herds, the architects that completely reshaped the terrain map of Sabi Sands. Ancient acacia trees toppled over, wide paths cut through thickets, and newly opened clearings became ideal corridors of death for leopards. Leopards do not need to compete in speed across open grasslands like cheetahs. They are master ambush hunters who use complex terrain for concealment. Piles of dry branches, newly grown bushes, and shadows from fallen tree canopies allow Talalamba to approach prey within just a few yards undetected. A lightning strike from above or from the bushes, a precise bite to the throat or nape. The fight usually ends in seconds, before the prey can even call for help. The ability to drag prey, weighing twice their body weight up into high branches, is one of the most impressive traits of leopards. This behavior not only protects their meal from hyenas and lions, but also demonstrates the astonishing muscular power of a cat, weighing only between 66 and 198 pounds. In the maze created by elephants, Talalamba became a true queen, agile, silent, and deadly. Leopards now dominate the zones between light and shadow. Sparse acacia woodlands, riverine thickets, and foothill areas where large male lions often move clumsily. They rule the deep night, hunting from dusk to dawn with higher efficiency than ever before. The resurgence of leopards is not just a population increase, but the establishment of a new order. Sabi Sands is no longer the exclusive stage for big lions. It has become a complex maze where agility, stealth intelligence, and adaptability hold more value than raw muscular power. Cheetahs gained space to sprint. African wild dogs recovered due to reduced competition, and the overall ecosystem became more diverse and balanced. However, this success also brought challenges. High leopard density led to fiercer internal competition between individuals. Conflicts with humans at the edges of the reserve still exist. Nevertheless, Sabi Sands remains one of the world's healthiest and best-studied leopard populations, with hundreds of individuals monitored across generations. From trembling ghosts on high branches during the Mapogo era, leopards have become true kings of the bush and the darkness. They remind us that in nature, no dominance is eternal. When one empire falls, there are always those more skillful and more patient who rise to fill the void and continue writing the Savanna's story with silent but powerful steps. But the success of leopards and the absence of an absolute ruler attracted uninvited guests. From distant plains, a death squad of predators with equally ruthless tactics was advancing. They did not travel alone, they moved in packs. The absence of the Mapogo rain not only opened the door for leopards, but also released a deadly pressure on one of Africa's rarest and most efficient predators, the African wild dog. Previously, under the tight control of the 6 lion giants, wild dog packs were often hunted down and eliminated immediately. Mapogo tolerated no rival predators that could compete for food. They hunted wild dogs as a way to assert power, pushing this species to the brink of local extinction in central Sabi Sands. Many packs had to migrate to the edges or live in constant stress, daring to hunt only during the most dangerous hours. But when the Blood Empire collapsed and elephant herds began turning dense thickets into more open spaces, this death squad returned. Sabi Sands has now become the playground of speed, endurance, and perfect coordination. From just a few dozen individuals, the number of wild dogs in the Kruger-Sabi Sands area has recovered noticeably, with many new packs forming and breeding successfully. They no longer live like refugees. They are becoming one of the most formidable hunting forces. African wild dogs do not possess 1,000-pound strikes, bone-crushing jaws, or muscular power like lions. Their weapons are discipline and absolute coordination. A typical wild dog pack has between 6 and 20 members, with a clear but flexible hierarchy. They hunt using sophisticated marathon relay tactics, maintaining speeds of 31 to 37 miles per hour over distances of 2 to 3 miles, sometimes more. When the lead dog tires, it drops back for another to take over, creating an unrelenting machine. Prey is worn down by endurance, running until exhausted, heart racing irregularly, and muscles stiffening. Unlike cheetahs, which sprint for only 20 to 30 seconds, wild dogs are true endurance athletes. They use the terrain created by elephants, wide trails for long-distance spotting, low bushes for initial concealment, and open spaces to deploy encirclement formations. A pack can bring down even an adult wildebeest or young zebra through perfect coordination, one biting the nose, another the Achilles tendon, others attacking from all directions. This is not ordinary hunting. It is a miniature military campaign where each member knows its exact role. You might dismiss their slender build, large ears, and mottled fur, but the actual data will amaze you. African wild dogs have the highest hunting success rate among large African predators, often reaching 80 to 90%, depending on the area and pack size. They do not waste energy on futile chases. Every hunt is calculated, targeting weak, old, or young prey, using wind and terrain, and coordinating seamlessly. However, success always comes at a high price, because they lack the strength to defend their kills from lions, hyenas, or even leopards. Wild dogs must eat at a frantic pace. They tear and swallow meat in just 10 to 15 minutes, prioritizing the most nutrient-rich organs. Every meal is a race against time. Their characteristic twitter calls while feeding immediately attract opportunists. This is the tragedy of the underdog, the most efficient hunters, yet the ones who lose their kills most easily. In the post-Mapogo era, even with reduced lion pressure, wild dogs still live in a state of 24/7 high alert. After the Mapogo era, Sabi Sands is witnessing a new truth. Strength lies not only in muscle, but in unity. Wild dogs have one of the most complex and tightly bonded social structures in the carnivore world. They live in packs with a single alpha pair allowed to breed. All other members participate in caring for the young, hunting, guarding, and most importantly, regurgitation, vomiting partially chewed food for pups and weak elders. This behavior ensures the survival of the next generation while strengthening social bonds. They lick faces, greet with high-pitched calls, and sleep together in a warm pile. This cooperation allows even small packs to take down large prey and achieve much higher pup survival rates than lions. The presence of wild dogs completely changes the behavior of herbivores. Antelope, zebra, and impala no longer only scan trees for leopards or bushes for lions. Now they face a ghost that can chase them to the ends of the earth with relentless endurance and deadly coordination. the ecosystem becomes harsher in a subtle way. Stronger natural selection pressure, where only the fittest and most vigilant survive. But the excessive success of wild dogs inevitably created a consequence: biological waste. Leftover carcasses became irresistible invitations to the savanna's smartest opportunists, those who had hidden in Mapogo's shadow for too long and now stepped into the light. If any species understands the changing times best, it is the spotted hyena. Throughout the Mapogo era, they lived in the shadow of fear. A single roar from Makalu or Mr. T was enough to scatter an entire hyena clan, forcing them to abandon their meal instantly. But that is the past. With the brutal kings gone, hyenas are no longer mere scavengers of rotting carcasses. They have risen, becoming one of Sabi-san's most intelligent, ruthless, and organized matriarchal societies. Hyenas are not simply meat eaters, they are strategists. They possess a strict hierarchy and social intelligence superior to that of lions. They understand that strength lies not in individual fangs and claws, but in numbers and coordination. A lone hyena may be vulnerable, but when 20 appear under the command of a dominant female, even leopards or young lions must consider retreating to save their lives. Observe how they capitalize on others' success. Hyenas can hear the sounds of prey being hunted from miles away. They are the savanna's ruthless tax collectors. A leopard works hard to drag prey up a tree. Hyenas wait at the base to snatch whatever falls or force the leopard to drop it. Wild dogs just finished their marathon hunt. Hyenas appear immediately to steal the prize through overwhelming numbers. In modern Sabi-sans, hyenas have become an intermediary power, channeling energy through the ecosystem by theft. Compared to the Mapogo era, this is the golden age for hyenas. They no longer live in fear, but in the confidence of those who know they hold the advantage. The abundance of hyenas proves the ecosystem has surplus food supplied by leopards and wild dogs. They are mirrors reflecting Sabi-san's prosperity. But the explosion of these opportunists is also a sign. Nature is preparing for the return of a higher order, because wherever there are too many hyenas, new roars will soon appear. Hyenas may be the best opportunists, but they are never kings. On the border grasslands, young lion coalitions are watching, learning, and preparing to step in and claim the throne that has stood empty for too long. Nature abhors a vacuum. As soon as Mapogo's shadow dissolved into the dust, young coalitions from surrounding areas began to sense the opportunity. They did not carry Mr. T's madness or Makulu's absolute power, Young males like the Birmingham Boys, and later Plains Camp, entered Sabi Sands like diplomats bearing weapons. They did not rush to destroy, they observed. They were not only seeking territory, but a more sustainable way of existence. If Mapogo was a storm that swept everything away, these new coalitions were flexible currents. Instead of waging all-out wars that drained energy and risked heavy casualties, they chose a wiser strategy, avoiding unnecessary losses and sharing boundaries. They understood that Sabi Sands had changed. Hyenas were too numerous, leopards too cunning. To rule, they could not rely on muscle alone. They learned to control territory flexibly, establishing buffer zones instead of blood-soaked borders. The power structure of Sabi Sands has changed permanently. No single individual or coalition can dominate every corner of this land anymore. Lions remain kings, but kings in a multipolar system. Hyenas are strong enough to defend their interests, leopards clever enough to hold their own domains, and elephants, the great architects, continue reshaping the land. The Birmingham Boys, and those who followed, had to learn to accept the presence of other powers. Mapogo's arrogance has been replaced by the awareness of those who adapt to the times. Mapogo once ruled through fear, and that very fear isolated them in their final days. Modern Sabi Sands has no room for solitary tyrants. It demands adaptation, coordination, and sometimes concession. The new kings are writing a different chapter in the book of survival, a chapter where life is not measured by the number of enemies destroyed, but by the ability to maintain balance in a constantly changing world. The new empire has been established, but this is not an ending. It is the beginning of nature's most wondrous state, a delicate balance where every species has a chance to shine. Sabi Sands today is no longer a solo stage for the brutal. It has become a multipolar ecosystem where each species has found its own place and tactics for survival. We are witnessing a fragile yet remarkably sustainable balance. There, no species is completely powerless, and no predator holds absolute power of life and death as in the Mapogo era. Every new day begins as a fresh game of chess, where every move is calculated by instincts, refined over millions of years of evolution. Observe this cycle. Wild dog packs use speed to drive prey into traps, but they also unwittingly prepare feasts for hyenas. Leopards, having learned bitter lessons from the past, no longer waste a second protecting their kills high in the trees. This is a multi-layered interaction. One species' success creates pressure on another, yet also provides life for yet another. Everything operates smoothly, like a well-oiled machine fueled by experience and adaptation. And here, at the top of the food chain, modern male lions no longer need mass slaughter to assert dominance. They rule through calculated threat. The presence of lions acts like an anchor, preventing hyena numbers from exploding and keeping leopards constantly sharp. They are no longer genocidal, like Mr. T, but regulators. Their strength now serves one purpose: maintaining order so their own bloodline can grow up in a rich and balanced land. This balance does not mean peace. Blood still spills, and cries of pain still echo through the darkness. But that is the price of a healthy ecosystem. In Sabi Sands, life does not exist despite death. It exists because of death, a closed cycle in which every link, from the massive elephant to the tiny dung beetle, plays an irreplaceable role. The brutality of the past has given way to an ordered harshness. The Mapogo Empire has receded far into the past, leaving behind a legacy that is not destruction, but a hard-earned lesson in survival. Sabi Sands has responded to its wounds with a vitality more powerful than ever before. Our journey began with roars that tore through the darkest nights. We have passed through the legacy of blood, witnessed the collapse of an empire built on fear, and seen how nature heals its own deep wounds. Sabi Sands is not merely a location on the map of Africa. It is a living entity, a powerful testament to the power of recovery. This land has proven that absolute dominance by any individual or species is only temporary, but diversity and adaptability are eternal. Sabi Sands today is no longer a land of solitary fear. It no longer belongs exclusively to any single reign. This is a land where the memory of elephant herds opens new pathways, where the solitude of leopards finds freedom, and where the laughter of hyenas is no longer furtive but an essential part of the food chain. Every creature here, whether predator or prey, is together composing a more harmonious and refined symphony of survival than ever before. The roars of the young lions today carry a completely different message. They are no longer the doomsday threats of the butchers known as Mapogo from years past. They are an affirmation that life continues, that the crown of the Savanna now rests on the heads of those who respect balance. The new generations of lions are growing up, carrying the hard lessons from their ancestors' blood and bones, ruling with the wisdom and strength of true kings. The story of Sabi Sands will never have an ending. Coalitions will form and dissolve, giants will fall, and new shoots of life will rise from the ashes. But after all of it, this land still stands, resilient and forgiving. Sabi Sands has answered its past with the most vibrant present, a world where fear is pushed back by diversity, and where every breath of the wild is a hymn to the indestructible power of untamed nature. Please like this video, share this journey from Ona Wild, animal documentary, and subscribe to join us on the next wildlife documentary episodes.